1865 Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mamivashasi satyam te pratijane priyosimi. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. So, if you'll notice, this verse is very similar to a verse that had appeared in the ninth chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. Manmanabhavat magakto madhyaji mam namaskaru. The first two lines are exactly the same. Mam evashasi yukta vavyam atmanamat parayana. So small difference. Mam evashasi satyam te mam evashasi yukta vavyam. Um, and it had appeared in the chapter 9, which is titled The Most Confidential Knowledge. Right? So, beginning from this verse, Krishna is giving Arjun the most confidential knowledge. And uh, the knowledge that he is giving is one of pure devotional service. So, with this verse, Krishna conclusively establishes the superiority of bhakti over all other forms of yogas. He conclusively establishes the destination of one who practices bhakti. So when Krishna says, being my devotee, think of me, he excludes all other possibilities. He does not say, be a jnani or a yogi and meditate on me. Right? So he explicitly is saying that becoming a devotee, you should think of me. And Krishna talks about man, right? You say man manabha bhakto, right? So because the mind controls the karmendriyas and the jnanendriyas. So when Krishna says that using your mind to worship me, offer homage to me, essentially what he is saying that everything that you do with your jnanendriyas or the karmendriyas, you do it only for me. And what is the consequence of that? Krishna says that you will come to me without fail. Right? And further revealing this confidential nature of this instruction, Krishna says that priyasumi. So this is an instruction that Krishna only gives to those who are very dear to him. Right? So somebody might speak generally in a large crowd, but to those that he has intimate relationship, Krishna or one gives more confidential knowledge. So this is actually one of the key verses. So if you remember in the 10th chapter, Krishna spoke the Chaturshloki in 10.8 to 11, where he talked about the mood of a devotee and Krishna's reciprocation to devotion. Then in the 15th chapter, he spoke about the Trishloki Gita, 15.16, 17, and 18, which was essentially an explanation of Sambandha relationship between the devotee and the Lord. 1865 is known as Gita Rahasya. It is the most confidential knowledge in the in the in the Gita, which simply put says that by becoming a devotee, you are assured to attain Krishna. And the next verse, 1866, is called the Charan Shloki, because there Krishna talks about the the means to do it, which is by surrendering. Okay, so we can go to the next verse now. 1866. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshasyami ma suchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So, this verse, which as I mentioned is called the Charan Shloki Gita. Also, it is called Gita Sar. It is called Paribhasha Sutra, which means that it is the defining verse of Krishna. So it captures the essence of bhakti. Krishna says, abandon all varieties of religion. Right? So now he is not talking about abandoning irreligion. That is given. Like, don't perform irreligious activities. So he's saying abandon all varieties of religion. What are the varieties of religion? The varieties of religion are those that are practiced through karma or gyan or astang. So Krishna is saying they abandon all of them and simply follow bhakti. So then one might say that if we abandon them, then we may be contaminated by sinful reactions. Right? So there are four possible kinds of sins that one can accrue by this abandonment. One is because of not following the scriptures. Right? In 16th chapter, Krishna has said these are demoniac people. So there are sins that could accrue from not following the, the Shastra Dharma. The second is by by neglecting the devas, because Krishna is exclusively saying that surrender unto me, right? And he's excluding everyone else. But we know that in the third chapter, Krishna had said how the devas they maintain auspiciousness for the material world. So one can accrue sins because of neglecting the devas. Third is that uh, uh, one may be propelled to perform sinful activities because of past sins. So this is essentially neglecting purification. That because of past sins, one has a propensity to perform further sinful activities, and if one neglects this fact, but does not go through the purification of the result of past sins, then they will accrue further sinful reactions. And the fourth is inaction, which essentially will force the senses to act in sinful ways. So Krishna, when he says that I will deliver you from all sinful reactions, he is saying that okay to neglect the Vedas, okay to neglect the Devas. Don't worry about your past sinful activities. And don't worry about being inactive. Any sins that come from these four things, I will protect you. The only condition that Krishna says, Mam Ekam Sharanam Braj, which essentially is another way of saying that engage in pure devotional service, you will be protected from everything. Now, one might say, if Krishna is saying that you abandon all varieties of religion, which is karma, jnana, astanga, etc., why does he even speak about it in the first place? Why doesn't Krishna lead with this verse as the as right after Arjun says that Shishyas Metam, that I am now your devotee, Krishna can just say that Sarvadharma Pratyaje, and that would have been a short Bhagavad Gita. And the reason is that this verse is not meant for those who are still materially engrossed. Why? Because they may they may be contaminated with this four category of sins without taking actual shelter of Krishna. Right? So essentially they will be at neither place. They will not have the gradual elevation of karma jnana stang, and they are not in the position to take shelter of Krishna. Which is why the concept of yoga ladder is important. So, from a more technical perspective, there are those who are sanishthas. So, sanishthas are those who use the process of karma, gyan, and astang for purification, and they reach till the stage of atma gyan. There is the Paranishta Bhaktas that are advanced enough that they act for inspiring others, and they also need purification. And then there is the Ananya Bhaktas who neither need further purification and are not particularly interested in setting an example for others. So the Bhagavad Gita is for all of them. For the Sanishtas, Krishna speaks the, the other dharmas of karma, jnana, stang, etc. For the Paranishtas, he also speaks about further purification through these, these processes while speaking about devotional service. And then the Ananya Bhaktas, they simply follow the Mam Ekam Sharanam Pracha. Verse 67, Idam te na tapakskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha sushrusave vachyam na cha mam yo bhivashyati. This confidential knowledge may never be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. So in verses 67 to 71, Krishna gives instructions and glorification of studying and preaching of the Bhagavad Gita. So here he talks about who should the Bhagavad Gita be spoken to, right? So he talks in negative. So there are four kinds of people that should not be given Bhagavad Gita, right? So they are those who are not austere, which means that they lack sense control, which means that they are grossly materialistic. Then those who do not have faith in Krishna, these are the atheists. Then there are those who lack devotion. So these are the mental speculators. And then those who are envious of Krishna. So these are the impersonalists. That because they're envious of Krishna, they want to destroy Krishna's form. So Krishna says that these kinds of people should not be given this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, one may say that the whole purpose of the Bhagavad Gita is to speak to these people so that they can be elevated from the platform, whether they're materialistic or atheists or mental speculators or impersonalists. But if Krishna is asking us to exclude them, then what is the hope for them? So here the role of the person explaining the Bhagavad Gita becomes important. So Srila Prabhupada writes the purports in such a way that it attracts the innocent, it guides the inquisitive, and it drives away the envious. So the point is made that the devotees, while they accept the instructions of Krishna, they are also magnifying his mercy. So while Krishna might not approach these people, the devotees do approach them on behalf of Krishna, but in such a way that they protect Krishna's instructions also, but also give these people an opportunity to, to abide or to take advantage of the Bhagavad Gita. So a devotee may approach an atheist and begin to speak about Gita in a general term. And if there is interest, speak about it in a more specific term. If there is even more interest, then guide the person to read the Gita. If there is more interest, then study the Gita. If there is more interest, then live the Gita. Right? So by successively engaging, they guide the person to higher stages. Srila Prabhupada talks about another point also, that when Krishna says that this may not be spoken to people who are materialistic, atheistic, etc., it means that even if this knowledge is presented to them, they will not understand it. Like Krishna says, the purpose of the Gita is not understandable to those who are sensuous, right, and or who are envious, etc., etc. Right? That's why Gita is considered the to be the most confidential secret that is openly available. And the reason it is confidential because even though it is openly available, it is crafted in such a way that only one who is properly qualified can take advantage of it. 68. Yadidam paramam guhyam madbhakteshvabhidashyati bhaktimai param kritva mameva shatya samshaya. For one who explains this supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end he will come back to me. So this is the benediction that Krishna gives to one who explains the Bhagavad Gita to a suitable audience. So because Krishna becomes so favorably inclined to the person that the person is assisting Krishna in his mission, he is giving them this benediction of pure devotional service, and the natural consequence of pure devotional service is the person goes back to Godhead. Next verse. न च तस्मान् मनुष्येषु कश्चिन्मे प्रियकृत्तमः भविता न च मे तस्मान् अन्यप्रियतरो भुवि. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. So this verse is essentially restating the previous verse for emphasis. So Krishna is out of intense affection for one who presents this message to his devotees, giving them an opportunity to make advancement, making the same point again, that the person is very, very dear to him. Next verse. Verse 70. Adhyeshayati cha yamimam dharmayam samvadam avayo jnanayagyena tenaham ishita shamiti me matihi. And I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. So far, Krishna was speaking about the preaching of the Bhagavad Gita, teaching of it to others. Now, Krishna is speaking about the studying of the Bhagavad Gita. Right. So, the benediction that he is giving to one who studies it is that pure devotional service is guaranteed. So, because the Gita is also known as the Gita Upanishad, because it is a book of philosophy, Krishna says one worships me by his intelligence. It does not mean that this is Gyan Kant, but this is the philosophical understanding of the ultimate importance of bhakti. Now you'll also notice that Krishna here characterizes the conversation as dharmayam sambadam. So dharmayam Srila Prabhupada translates as sacred, also means a conversation regarding dharma. Now, the very first verse of the Bhagavad Gita was Dharm Kshetra Kurukshetra Samveta Yotsava. Right? So, one can understand that the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita begins with the word dharma and concludes with the word dharma. Essentially meaning that Bhagavad Gita is about the supreme dharma. Okay, so we can now go to the next verse. Verse 71. Shraddhavan anasuyascha shrunuyadapi yo naraha sopi muktah shubhalokan prapnuyat punyakarmanam. And one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reaction and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. So the previous verse spoke about speaking the Gita to those who are favorably inclined to Krishna, right? And after that, Krishna spoke about the glories of one who studies this sacred conversation. Right. So when you're engaging with some literature, there is the there is the hearing, reading, and studying. So the previous verse talked about studying, which means that something like what is done in Bhakti Sastri, or even there are those that goes beyond the scope of the Bhakti Sastri, and study it in even more details. There are examples of acharyas that speak for months on a verse, bringing forth so many realizations. So this verse actually talks about one who is at a lower platform. The person is neither reading nor studying, but is simply listening. So Shunyat, he is simply listening. But what is the qualification of his listening? That is listening without faith and with faith and without envy. So just by listening to the message of the Bhagavad Gita, not necessarily understanding it, not necessarily following it, not but without criticism. The Acharya says sometimes people, when Bhagavad Gita is being recited, people say, what is the purpose of reciting Bhagavad Gita in the present times? It was spoken 5,000 years ago, times have changed. Or they may find fault with the person, this person doesn't know Sanskrit, so he recites the verse inaccurately, or he does not have a melodious voice. Or they might say that this verse actually is um, interpreted, spoken incorrectly by Krishna, and I reject this verse and select this verse. So these are all symptoms of envy and fault finding. If a person does not have that, but with a simple heart, he simply listens to it, Krishna still offers him this benediction that he will become free from all sins, and then he will attain the exalted destination of those who perform several sacrifices. Right, so this is where the pious dwell, or may even attain the spiritual world. So it is because of this reason that the devotees of the Lord, they put themselves to so much pain so that others can benefit. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that in the 67th verse, the Lord explicitly forbade the Gita being spoken to those who are envious. In other words, the Gita is only for the devotees. But it so happens that sometimes a devotee of the Lord will hold an open class. And in that class, not all the students are expected to be devotees. Why do such persons hold open class? It is explained here that although not everyone is a devotee, there are still many men who are not envious. So, this is why the devotees take the risks. So, generally speaking, people are in three categories: those who are favorable, those who are unfavorable, and those who are neutral. So, for those who are favorable, the devotees will explain the Gita in great details. For those who are neutral, the devotees will explain the Gita in general terms, and in this way, they will also get the benefit. Those who are envious, the devotees will either try to avoid them, or if they are commingled with the first two categories, then the classes are spoken in such a way that those who are envious do not get an opportunity to manifest that envy. So you will see that when classes on Bhagavad Gita are given, the mood of the speaker when he's speaking in the um, uh, to the group of devotees is different from when he's speaking in the Sunday open house, and it's different when he's speaking more in an interfaith. So I witnessed devotees giving classes in these three different settings. In interfaith, they try to speak about the message of Krishna in a more inclusive way, so that people from the other faith do not develop envy for Krishna. When they're speaking in the open house, the people who come are generally favorable. So then the message is spoken a little bit more directly, and when speaking to practicing devotees, then the message is spoken with much more relish, with much more intricacies there. Okay, so we now go to the next verse. Verse 72. Kachit eta shrutam partha tvaikagrena chetashaha kachit jnana sammoha pranashtaste dhananjaya. O son of Pratha, O conqueror of wealth, have you heard this with an attention mind? And are your ignorance and illusion now dispelled? So, uh, in the mood of a teacher, Krishna is now ensuring that he is able to communicate to the student. So Acharya say Krishna is asking this question to Arjun because if he says that he has still not understood what Krishna is saying, Krishna is prepared to speak the Bhagavad-gita again. So interestingly, so here we will see later on Arjun affirming that he has actually understood what Krishna has said. But interestingly, later on, Arjun will ask Krishna to once again repeat the message for him. And that appears, so the Bhagavad Gita appears in the Bhishma Parva of the Mahabharata, which is the sixth uh, book, and uh, the the second Gita, which is known as the Anugita. Anugita, Anu means that follows. The Anugita appears in the 14th book, which is the Ashwamedika Parva. Right. So there, Arjun actually says that the instructions that you gave me during the Battle of Mahabharata over a period of time have blurred. Can you explain them to me again? And Krishna happily he speaks Anugita. It is a longer composition, not as famous as Bhagavad Gita, and the messages are slightly explained more through storytelling at the time. But the important point to note over here is that we see that uh, uh, the humility and the patience and affection of the Lord. That the Lord Himself is saying that if I was not a good teacher, I'm willing to try again. Right? He's not saying that you would be foolish to not understand. I'm the perfect teacher. He's saying that if for some reason I was not able to teach you properly, let me know. I will teach you again. Verse 73. Arjun vacha nashtamoha smritirlabda tvat prasadan maya chuta sitosmi gatah sandeha karishyasi vachanam tava. Arjun said, My dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy. I am now firm and free from doubt and am prepared to act according to your instruction. So, interesting point to note is that when Krishna first appeared in the Bhagavad Gita, then it was addressed by the name Achyuta. So, in 121, when Arjun asked Krishna to take his chariot and position it between the two armies, he says, Senayor Ubhayor Made Ratam Sthapaya Me Achyuta. Right? And that time Krishna is glorified as Achyuta because he is infallible in serving his devotees, even though he's taking the lowly position of a chariot driver. And he is taking instructions from his devotee, but also executing on them uh, with with faith, right? So that is the position of Krishna as Achyuta. Now, Arjun ends this conversation with once again addressing Krishna as Achyuta. So, whether Krishna is protecting the devotees, instructing his devotees, helping his devotees, correcting his devotees, he is in all times infallible in his protection to his devotees. So Arjun responds to the question of Krishna with four realization. He says that my ignorance is gone. So the ignorance that he had is that I am the body. That ignorance has been replaced by the fact that I'm not the body but the soul. The ignorance that he had is that I'm independent to make my decisions whimsically. That is replaced by the understanding that he should be directed by the scriptures. Secondly, Krishna Arjun says that I understand correctly the nature of things. So this essentially is Sambandha Gyan, where Arjun says, now I understand how I am as a jiva related to you as the Supreme Lord. Third point that he says is that now I'm ready to act according to the instructions. This is Abhidekya. That having understood my relationship with you, I'm now ready to act as as a part of bhakti or devotional service. That is Abhidek. And fourth, he says that this is possible only by your mercy. So this is prayojan. That the result of Sambandh and Abhidek is that Krishna's mercy descends. And then when Krishna's mercy descends, one becomes one becomes firmly placed as a devotee. So this concludes the conversation between Krishna and Arjun. In the remaining four verses, Sanjay will share his realization on having heard this sacred conversation. Sanjay Vacha Ityaham Vasudevasya Parthasya cha Mahatmanah Samvadam Imam Asrausham Adbhutam Romaharshanam. Sanjay said, "Thus I have heard the conversation of two great souls, Krishna and Arjun, and so wonderful is that message that my hair is standing on end." So the last time that Sanjay had spoken was in the 11th chapter, verse 50, where again he had expressed astonishment at seeing the universal form of Krishna. So at that time his hair was standing on an end out of extreme fear and astonishment. Now he is saying that Romaharsham, that now he says that his hair is standing out on an end because of the great ecstasy that he is experiencing on seeing this adbhutam, this wonderful conversation. So we notice that Sanjay is placing Arjun and Krishna on similar platforms. Right? He says Mahatmana, Vasudevasya, Parthasya cha. Now he has heard the Bhagavad-gita, so he obviously knows that Krishna is God and Arjun is Jiva, but it is also showing his appreciation to a devotee. That it is because of Arjun that the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. So, in a way, Arjun is more potent to Sanjay and to us because he caused the Bhagavad Gita to be manifested. And Sanjay is appreciating the fact that because of the greatness of Arjun, the Lord spoke the Bhagavad Gita. Now he is also going to talk about what he predicts the, the outcome of the battle to be. Verse 75 Vyasa prasada shrutva etad guyamaham param yogam yogeshwarat krishna sakshat kathayatah swayam. By the mercy of Vyas, I have heard these most confidential talks directly from the master of all mysticism, Krishna, who was speaking personally to Arjun. So, this is Sanjay acknowledging the fact that only by the mercy of his guru Vyas that he became qualified to hear this conversation. So, if in Mahabharata, Dhritarashtra had expressed that his remorse that because he was blind, he will not be able to witness the battle. And Vyasadeva said, "Okay, I'll give you the ability to see." And then Dhritarashtra said, "I've lived all my life blind. What is the point in me seeing when I will witness the death of my sons and my family members?" So then Vyasadeva says, "Okay, I will give this benediction to Sanjay that even though he will be seated next to you, he will be able to witness everything that is happening in the battle. And not only that, he will also understand the purport and reveal them to you." So that's how Sanjay, sitting next to Vyas, was able to hear the conversation between Krishna and Arjun and also the other aspects that he's going to be that he reveals. So in the mood of a surrendered devotee, Sanjay is acknowledging the fact that only because of the mercy of his guru he is able to hear the Bhagavad Gita. So this is also an instruction to us that over time we may read the Bhagavad-gita, we may be able to understand different aspects of it, we may delve a little deeper into what Prabhupada has revealed in the purports, but we should always understand that it is only by the mercy of Prabhupada that we have had this opportunity to engage in the study of the Bhagavad-gita. Verse 76, Rajan samsmritya samvadam imamadbhutam Keshava Arjunayo punyam rishyami cha muhurmuhu. O king, as I repeatedly recall this wondrous and holy dialogue between Krishna and Arjun, I take pleasure being thrilled at every moment. So one thing this verse shows is the extreme ecstasy of Sanjay. Right. So we see he says Rajan samsmritya samsmritya. So samsmritya means remembering. So he says king remembering. Right. So there is an apparent fault of repetition, but because of the ecstasy that Sanjay is feeling, that repetition actually becomes an ornament. Similarly, he says, Hrishyami cha more, again and again, over and over. Right? So we see that in real life, when somebody is under the force of extreme emotions, they might repeat the word. Again, somebody meets their friends after a long time, and they say, "Oh, nice to see you. So very much nice to see you. I'm happy to see you." Right? The force of ecstasy. So we see that manifesting in Sanjay, reflecting the quality of this conversation. The second point also is that one might say that why is Sanjay having to repeatedly recall this conversation again and again? And why is it that when he repeatedly recalls his conversation, he's taking pleasure and being thrilled again and again? So this points to the fact that the Bhagavad Gita is a living conversation. So we have all had this experience in our life that uh, you read the Bhagavad Gita and you get one set of realizations. You read it again, you get you get additional realizations. You read it after 20 years, you get even more realizations because this is not a static conversation. Like this is a living conversation. Just like if you have a conversation with your guru, at one point the guru may reveal something to you for the same question. Later on, he may reveal something else to you. Later on, maybe something more, because this is a living conversation. So similarly, even the Bhagavad Gita is apparently static because it's enshrined in the verses and the words, but because it is spoken by the, the transcendental personality of the Godhead, it is a living conversation that continues to speak different words and different accents and different messages to the reader. Next verse. Okay, verse 77. Tacha samsmritya rupam atyadbhutam hare vishmaya mahan rajan rishyami cha punaha punaha. O king, as I remember the wonderful form of Lord Krishna, I am struck with wonder more and more, and I rejoice again and again. So once again we see the repetition that is coming out of wonderment. Samsmritya, that I remember again and again. Punah, that means that repeatedly. So Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas say that Sanjay is speaking this verse mostly referring to the uh, universal form that he witnessed of of uh, of Krishna. So he recalls the amazing universal form, but having now understood more about the position. Initially, he was frightened, but now he is amazed and happy. So his amazement comes from the fact that Krishna is able to manifest this incredible form that nobody had seen before. And then his happiness comes from the fact that Krishna does all that to please his devotee. Arjuna had said that show me that fragment of yours by which you pervade the universe. And Krishna says happily so. So that is also giving happiness to Sanjay. And the Puna once again talks about the ever increasing bliss of spirituality. as opposed to the static staleness of materialism. Next verse, verse 78. This is the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Yatra yogeshvara krishno yatra partho dhanurdaraha tatra shrir vijayo bhutir dhruva nitir matir mama. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. So the Bhagavad Gita started with Dhritarashtra asking Sanjay, Kim Kurvata Sanjaya? That he says that now that the armies have uh, assembled, what 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 are they doing? And Sanjay is now definitively answering that question. He is saying that what is going to happen is that your side is going to lose and the Pandavas will win. Why are they going to win? Because there is Krishna who is the master of all the mystics. Right? Uh, Sanjay is calling Krishna the master of all mystics since while staying at one place he is maintaining the entire universe. By being the personality of Godhead, he manifests, he shows his control on every aspect of the creation without moving from that place. Right? So that is the master of the mysticism. And then who is the student? Arjun. Arjun is the supreme archer. Right? So when these two are coming, then uh, Sanjay says victory is assured. But not just Vijaya, right? Not just victory. He says that Shri, that there will be opulence and there will be extraordinary power and morality. Right? Because just victory doesn't mean anything. So, morality means that the war is fought on the basis of dharma. So, the victory will be that of dharma. Opulence means that it will it will show forth the greatness of Krishna and his and the extraordinary power of those who take shelter of Krishna. And so in this verse, Sanjay has essentially now summarized the interactions in the Bhagavad Gita. That Krishna, the master of the of the mystics, and by by his presence there is opulence. There is the extraordinary power that he invests in his devotees. There is the following of the principles of morality. And the conclusion, he says, Mati Mama. This is my final opinion. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that from Bhagavad Gita we can understand that to realize oneself by philosophical speculation and by meditation is one process, but to fully surrender unto Krishna is the highest perfection. This is the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. The path of regulative principles according to the orders of social life and according to the different courses of religion may be a confidential path of knowledge. But although the rituals of religion are confidential, meditation and cultivation of knowledge are still more confidential. And surrender unto Krishna and devotional service in full Krishna consciousness is the most confidential instruction. So Srila Prabhupada once again brings our attention to the supremacy of bhakti as being the, the most confidential instructions given by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. So with this, we end our uh, discussion of the third module, the 18th chapter, and of the Bhagavad Gita. Om Tat Sat. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.